You might hear my cats every once in a while just be like, meow. Don't mind them. Hi, I'm LillianLione. I recently got into streaming, but I have been playing video games since 1996. So a little old school. I do other things other than video games. I play a lot of sports. I am a workout fanatic. I love cats. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, so obviously I love what I do. So I work in the hospital, and so I'm working with a lot of neuro patients, ortho patients, cardiac patients, and then when I'm done with my day of work, I get home and I use video games to de-stress, bond with friends, and pretty much just unwind. So it's a nice little escape, I like to think. Games were always for me a social thing. Like, you played games to bond with other people, to like explore fantasy, things like that. So the first game that the first controller I ever laid these precious little hands on was an SNES Super Mario Bros. 3 controller for the game. And I was visiting my grandparents. It was fantastic because my grandparents were like, well, we got this for your parents, but like, I guess you guys are old enough, you can try it out. And my parents sat down and taught us how to play, and they were like nerding out because they had this later on in their lives. For anyone who hasn't played that game, it's like you start over every single time. It's like Star Fox N64. If you haven't played that game, you just start over every time. But it's fantastic though, because you have to like share. It's not just one person playing through, it's two people, and they alternate, like they get to choose, okay, you go to this level, you go to this level. When I die, you take over. From there, like my parents were like, oh, they do a good job of like sharing this controller. It's not just like her older brother hogging it the entire time. And that Christmas, my parents got us an N64, and the 3 games we got on it were Mario Party, Mario Kart, and GoldenEye, which I'm awful at GoldenEye. I still suck at that game, unless it's only slaps, and then I rock. Dare I say it, I'm the slaps that slaps. But no, so I think that was like what kicked it off for me though. And then it was a healthy amount of, you do schoolwork, you do everything, you do your chores. Okay, you get this much time to play video games with your brother. And we always had to play with each other. And so from there, it was a lot of bonding with he and I to, be able to go forth and play these games together, build relationships of these worlds. I mean, it expands your world of imagination, and you just don't look back. Once you find like a good game that has like a healthy relationship, possibilities are endless from there on out. I have a little service announcement for parents and for children. Parents, you're up first. So don't take it offensive if your kids want you to play with them just so they can laugh at you with how bad you are. We did that with my mom in Mario Kart, and we did it with my dad in Mario Kart. And their contacts would dry out and they just drive into walls, and we're just cackling as little 10-year-olds. It was a lot of fun. Like, even if they didn't play the game, like if they sat there and they were interested, my parents didn't care about playing, Zelda, but they were like, hey, you're really into it. You want to talk about it at dinner. Like, they want to support something that you're passionate about. And that's good parenting. It's the same thing if I came home from school and I was like, hey, I learned this really cool thing about the solar system. I want to tell you all about it. You want to be able to reinforce that. So whether they want to make fun of you or whether they just want to spend time with you, do it. It's a lot of fun. Now, don't be like me, where if I have kids, I'm going to be ruthless with them. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to play. All right, now you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. For kids, ask your parents to hang out with you when you're playing a game. I play Little Big Planet with my mom, and I'm literally peeing my pants laughing and crying. My mom is awful at video games, and she does not understand that Sackman, when he jumps and tries to grab something, he's gonna grab the closest thing to you and pulls me down into fire and spikes every time. Do we ever beat the level? No. But do we have a lot of fun with it? Yes. For we niños, for the children, get your parents involved. Who knows? You might find out that your dad really loves to play Harvest Moon because he really likes to pet animals. Your dad really likes GoldenEye because he had a really stressful day from work and he's gonna shoot all the bad guys for you, and you just run around slapping stuff. So it's great. It's awesome. It's a good family bonding experience. Same thing with siblings. I find it very, very important for family to be involved, especially with parents. Kingdom Hearts had the biggest impact on me because that was 2 of my loves coming together. Disney, which, I grew up on, everyone wanted to be a Disney princess, or everyone wanted to have a talking animal as your best friend. So Disney meets the intensity of Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy came out, obviously, before I was born. And, you'd seen it played, you'd heard about it, you watched people play it, you kind of played it yourself, but you didn't quite understand what was going on other than the main character was really cute. These 2 games came together and birthed Kingdom Hearts. and it came out when I was in grade school. I'm in grade school. It was nasty. I had no self-confidence. I didn't talk about playing video games, and I got made fun of. I'm very tall. I'm 5'9", and I played a lot of sports. Like, I've always had a masculine build. No one ever wanted to talk to me. No one wanted to be friends with me for the most part. And Kingdom Hearts was a healthy escape. I mean, like, it was this game that had amazing music, had an amazing story, had like a really safe feel to it with the Disney characters all coming in, and it taught you it's okay to be scared. It's okay to go out on a limb. It's okay to take risks. It's okay to also stay at home. It's okay when you have to say goodbye to friends. It's okay if you don't make friends. There will be people supporting you. I'm like getting goosebumps. It's such an amazing game, and it came out right when I needed it too. I've played a lot more games as an adult because I have the freedom. Like, I don't have my parents being like, you only have an hour to play. I've always been a Harvest Moon fan. Got introduced to Harvest Moon way too late in the game. I started playing in college. I dated a guy for 8 years. It was a little emotionally abusive. When he and I broke up, everyone sided with him. I lost all of my friends over the course of 4 years in college, and I was extremely alone. It was intense. I went into a deep depression. I'm a very social person, and to have all of that stripped from me, I had nothing. My mom got me Harvest Moon Animal Parade. She was like, oh, you know, like, she loves animals. This will be great. So I started playing this game, and it's the best game to play when you're depressed because you can focus on yourself, or you can focus on your farm, or you can focus on other people. But to focus on other people, you have to focus on yourself and the farm. So it's this healthy balance of what can you do for yourself, and it takes time. And it pretty much, for me, it was forcing people to love me, finding out what people like, listening to their problems, solving problems in the town and rebuilding the town. You produce milk, you make cheese, you give that to someone. The next thing you know, that person shows up at your door and they're like, thank you, I brought you this gift. That was my only human interaction. Not really human because they're animated, but to me, that was safe. That was something that brought me good feelings. I didn't fall asleep wanting to cry and kill myself. And I brought this up to my therapist at one point because she asked me, like, what do you do that brings you joy? And she's super Southern. She's from Tennessee. So she's like, what do you do that brings you joy? And I was really embarrassed. Like, I was like, I play Harvest Moon. And she's like, oh, Harvest Moon, tell me about it. I told her about it, and she was like, all right, I'm writing you a prescription to play Harvest Moon 1 hour daily after you finish your homework. Go to classes still, and you make sure that you're hydrated. Here you go. That was my only prescription. I took stuff for anxiety, but I never took anything for depression because I played Harvest Moon. It was a game that you could have a friend come over, and like once I was getting out of depression, and they'd come over and they'd just sit, you just talk, and you play this game because it doesn't require a lot of focus. You can literally just let your mind wander, or you can focus on the game, whatever you need. So Harvest Moon got me through dark times. So that game is always going to have a special place in my heart. Stardew Valley was a game that you think it's just going to be farming, and it hits you in the feels. I mean, like, I'm getting goosebumps. The character development of this game and the stories that it tells are, I mean, like, I'm speechless. These characters you meet in a small town, and you're picking up a farm from your grandpa, and you used to work in this corporate company, and you're just miserable. And he's like, hey, you'll know when you want to open this envelope. So you open this envelope, and he inherits you as farm. You go to this farm, and you're like, okay, all I'm gonna do is farm and meet people. Okay, cool. It's like Harvest Moon, but like pixelated. No, way wrong. You meet people, and at first glance, you're like, I'm not really interested in them. They seem really flat. They're one-dimensional. There's nothing to this place. But no, like, there is a character in specific that made me realize that this game was so impacting on my life. He's standing out on a dock, and he's drinking, and you stand next to him, and like, you hate this character, for the record. Most people do. He offers you a drink, and you drink it. And he says, and I'm probably butchering the quote, but he says, have you ever felt like you were in such a deep hole that no matter how much you crawl out of it, you're never gonna get anywhere? I literally goosebumps. I remember that hit me, and I started like tearing up, and I do not cry easily. The Lion King and my dog Skip is it. No matter who you are, you will relate to some aspect of these characters. It's just so deep. As an adult woman who's been through rough relationships, been through job changes, been moving, had loss of loved ones, loss of family members, this game covers all of those bases. I mean, like, anything you can think of, mental illness, PTSD, anything along those lines where you think that a video game isn't going to touch on it, especially one that's like farming and sheep that you can pet. No, this game just gets into it. It made me fall in love with that game that much more after that one encounter. I was like, I'm sold. I think that'd be a great game for people to play. think it's going to be a tie between Kingdom Hearts franchise and The World Ends With You. So The World Ends With You was a game that I played, I want to say in high school, because I played it before my trip to Japan. Fantastic timing, by the way, because that game is set in Japan. So I was like that nerdy little girl who's like, mind you, like, remember, no self-confidence. I'm like walking around with my family and I'm like, that's the Buchiko statue. You want to know about it? My parents are like, sure. So it follows this main character, Neku. He's the kind of guy who you'd imagine like hoodie up, headphones in, like doesn't want to talk to people. He gets hit by a car and all of a sudden he wakes up and he's got this timer on his hand that's a countdown. And he's pretty much in this world where he has to defeat these bosses to get back to his real world. But to defeat these bosses, you have to find a partner. You have to bond with them immediately and say like, you're my partner. And then you're bound with them throughout the rest of the remainder of this time. He is not a people person. He hates people. He is extremely antisocial and very selfish. The characters he meets along the way are very different people. It's how he forms these relationships with them and himself. It gets traumatic. There's deaths. There's a lot of stuff going on. And Neku starts to realize it's not about me. And being in high school, when you transition from being king of the castle in 8th grade, for most people, I was not. I was like one of the plebs. You transition from this king of the castle mentality into high school. And especially a lot of people, they go to a high school where either they don't know anyone or they go in with only a couple friends and they only cling to those group of friends and they don't branch out. Or if they try to branch out, they get shut down. This is one of those games where I feel like it's almost like it should be on a summer reading list, where instead of reading 5 books and the kid likes only like 2 or 3 of them, maybe have them read 2-3 books that you know are going to be impactful and then play this game. It's a coming of age story. It's going to teach them the things that you can't teach someone in a book sometimes, especially with that age group, like that 13, 14, 15-year-old age group. They want to experience it. They want to be hands-on, and they play this game and get that and see consequences and see change happening with this character. And it's not like he's like, oh, I hate the world, to all of a sudden being like sunshines and rainbows. Like it's at the very end of it, he's like, take off the hood and extend a hand. It's enough of a change where it's impactful. I think that's a really influential game. And that was one of the games I told my mom, and I was like crying. Again, I don't cry. And I was like, Mom, if I ever become a teacher, like I would have my students play this game. It's that impacting. Top 5, The World Ends With You. Specifically the selflessness, the perspective on things, the coming of age and experiencing grief and loss and having things not go the way you want them to go and how you have to make a change of plans. That was a big one for me because I am kind of a control freak. So all of a sudden to have the world literally turned upside down on you and to restart a game in the game when you think you beat it, that is super jarring. The other one would be, I'd say Super Smash Brothers. So Super Smash Brothers for me was teamwork, communication, perseverance, and it earned me respect from my older brother. I got really good, like really good. Obviously I went and played in video game tournaments. My brother came home and he was like, let me see if my little sister can play with my friends and I just wiped the floor with them. And instead of being mad, our brother was like, okay, handshake, I see you. It might not seem like a lot for other people, but it is something that requires a lot of drive and a lot of time. And again, it's a community game. And it teaches you how to be a healthy loser. That's a big one. You're like, okay, what can I do better next time? I had Ocarina of Time on here, but instead I'm going to give that to Stardew. Stardew with the influential moments was that one moment on the docks. I would then come back to that and be like, wow, no, this was the moment where it hit you to the core and you just sat there in silence while the night went on. Kingdom Hearts I thought was a really good one because it teaches you people can change. Don't give up. Even outside of perseverance, this one was more so like don't give up on your morals. Sora kind of holds on to this sense that good will conquer evil and I will save Kairi. He's very pure of heart because of it, because he never falters. And when he does falter, it's realistic and he has friends there to help him. It's a good ideal. Don't be unchanging, but find who you are at the core and hold on to that. It taught me a healthy relationship between Sora and Kairi because they started out as friends. It was never awkward. They were always like believing in one another. And that kind of ties into my last one, which was the Final Fantasy franchise, specifically Final Fantasy X for me. Final Fantasy X was my first Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy was a big one because of strategy. That game was hard, man. That game influenced me a lot. I loved Moogles because of it, which is like a huge theme on my Twitch. Possibilities are endless. You could literally do so many different things and meet so many different people of different races and different kinds and just personalities and different endings sometimes depending on how you played something. And you could mix up your party. It was a different game every time you played it if you wanted it to be. That was another one that my brother and I played together. Oh my god, the patience you have to have for that game because the grind is real, but again, you only do it if you enjoy it. So that's another game where it's just like there's just so much to go into it and all the love that comes out of the character relationships, the different kinds of people that you meet. There's a reason Final Fantasy is a classic, and that's one of the reasons. The media doesn't paint a lot of games in the brightest image. A lot of our generation and teachers' generations above us have been told like video games cause violence, video games are bad. But we just listed multiple video games that have been extremely influential in good ways and they're not violent. It really comes down to educating yourself. If you like the idea of a game, look into it, see what people's reviews are on it. If you want people to learn something about agriculture, for example, and you want to learn about bonding and what's socially appropriate, that would be a great game for Harvest Moon. As far as like other games, like if you're trying to incorporate something more mainstream, really look into it and see if it has like a story value, an educational value to it. The other thing too is like if you wanted to play a game like Okami, which is a great game. I mean, there's a lot of story and lore to it, but then it also requires finesse and drawing. So it's something like that. If you want something visually appealing and something like to do with the students, like a Wiimote is always going to be great. Tying it back to physical therapy real quick, because that's right, I am a doctor. I've actually used a lot of video games with my patients. I work with Parkinson's patients, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, and traumatic brain injuries, even pediatric and autistic patients. I've had them use the balance board on the Wii. I've had them do Wario smooth moves, which is a lot of like random activities. And you can make it as slow paced or as fast paced as you want. It's different. It's visually appealing. It's stimulating for them. And it's just something that's different. It's amazing to see the synapses in the brain. They might not be able to remember what I'm doing with kinesthetic awareness with them outside of the video game, but by golly, the moment I put them on that balance board and they have to pretend to shuffle like a penguin and they have like a hemiparetic stroke to one side, they shuffle like a penguin and they are so good at it. You can't fathom that. That's just the beauty of it. If you're ever hesitant, like I said, research it, look into it, have fun with it. If you don't think you're gonna have fun with it, then maybe it's not for you. But if you're even just thinking about it, this is a great channel to check into. And also look online, look at game reviews or what people have said. My 3 take-home messages, I would say, would be parents, play with your kids, know what they're playing. You're never gonna be able to know exactly what's going on unless you know what kind of games they're playing. That does not mean to backseat drive. So if a kid wants to play a game, you can let them play, but have a healthy amount of time to play it. Don't let them play for 4 hours. Give them a certain allotted time. Okay, so that's number 1. So parents be involved with their kids playing games. Same thing with teachers being involved with kids playing games. 2, teachers, don't be afraid to bring in games to the classroom. And we've been talking a lot about video games. That could be board games too. There are so many really cool board games that you can play that a lot of people will get really into. And then the last thing I'd say is this goes to anyone. Play any of those games that I recommended. Look them up, really get a feel for these games and kind of explore those worlds. And then who knows, you might start playing those games and then it's a rabbit hole from there. If you enjoyed this interview or if you're even just looking to see any of these games that I am talking about, you just find me on Twitch. It's just a Twitch TV/LillianLione. And then you'll be able to check out kind of what's going on my channel and when I stream and join me for fun times. But yeah, that's it. That's it for me.